Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm glad you're here today. I just wanted to share with you guys 4 marriage tips on a couple little things that might surprise you, but that can make a really big difference in your marriage. Okay, so number 1 is know for sure what makes your spouse feel loved. I know that sounds obvious, right? But sometimes I see this a lot that I notice, especially in working with couples. A lot of times the attempt that couples will make to show love to their spouse is really the way that they would prefer to be loved, right? So they are doing something loving, but they might be doing it in a way to get their own love tank filled, which is not necessarily wrong, but you need to be able to know how your spouse really feels loved. So that can kind of play into the whole love language thing if you've heard of that. I'm not saying that that is rock solid or it's good or bad. It's more just a quick reference maybe for how you or your spouse feels loved. But regardless of that, you need to know really how they feel loved. So if they're a physical touch kind of person, show them that physical touch to let them know that you love them. Give them a shoulder rub or a head scratch, or hold their hand while you're driving in the car, or whatever it is. But you really need to know what that is for your spouse and do those things to attempt to reach your spouse, not just the things that you want to be filled, right? So if you're the physical touch person and you constantly go to your spouse to like hold their hand or rub their shoulders or get a hug or something, that's not wrong, but you need to remember that you're filling your own tank at that point, not filling theirs. So we need both, right? You need to be able to get your own tank filled, but you need to be able to know how to reach them for them, because we cannot have successful, healthy marriages if we're super selfish, right? We both have needs that need to be met, but we need to remember that it's not a selfish journey. It can't be. It can't be selfish and be successful. So we need to know how our spouse loves to receive love from us. Okay, number 2 is don't sweat the small stuff. Another one that might sound kind of obvious, but it's another one that is often a really big problem for a lot of people. And I think it's understandable why. We can get overwhelmed with life and work and kids and all the things, and then one little thing can be the cherry on top that just sends us over the edge, right? But this was marriage advice that I had heard even years before I was married, and it was from someone who had been married for 40-something years, and I think it's really wise advice. Not to sweat the small stuff. It's hard to do, but if you can work on not letting that small thing become something astronomical, then it can make a big difference. So let me give you a real example here, because I am married and I work with married people, and I know that marriage is hard and it takes work, and you're forever 2 different people trying to come together as one. And you're forever 2 different personalities that are going to see life different and do life different. Even if you get used to living together, we still have our things, right? And I think we need to remember that. So let me go back to my real life example. My husband likes to put, like, if he's done with a dish or something, he puts it right next to the sink and not in the sink. It doesn't matter if the sink is full, empty, in the middle of that. He puts it right next to it, because if he does dishes, he has a very certain way of doing dishes, and if I do dishes, I just do them. I don't know. I like rinse them off, put them in, you know? And so this thing has drove me crazy forever, right? That he just sets it next to it. I just don't understand. I'm like, it's inches away. You can put it in, all the way in, you know? And it has caused fights before, but in the grand scheme of things, I've learned to remember that that's a small thing, right? And I'm not perfect, so there's still times I see that dish and I'm like, oh my gosh, why couldn't that go in the sink? But I will also be honest that there's lots of times that it doesn't faze me, because I realize that's a small thing. And if I let that dish situation become really huge, it very easily could be very huge, but it's a small thing. It's not a thing that is worth me fighting with my husband for a day and a half over, right? So I know we have to gauge what's big and small, but don't sweat the small stuff. Okay, number 3, this one might be a touchy subject, but I really think it's wise advice that you have complete and utter transparency in money. So I am just kind of surprised at how many couples have their money totally separate, and there's lots of ways to do things. I'm not trying to suggest that there's one right way, but if I could put a really strong suggestion, I would say your money should not be totally separate. And if it is separate, that's why I said transparency in money. So if you do have separate accounts and credit cards and things like that, the transparency would come in, you each have access and passwords and things like that to look at money. Because the reason behind this is that it's not just money, it's your guys' livelihood and life together, and more than that, it's complete transparency and trust in each other, you know? So I'm not saying that if you have a separate account, you don't trust your spouse, or your spouse doesn't trust you, or something like that, but it eliminates that option or that issue later on, right? So if you're doing life together and you said, I do, I love you, we're doing life together for ever and ever, there's really no reason to keep everything totally separate. And honestly, I think money is a touchy subject, right? And this part of the video might scare some people or frustrate some people because it is a touchy subject. And if you have everything separate and you like it that way, that's not an easy thing to change, right? But I want to suggest to you, maybe this is just planting the seed, but I want to suggest to you that having full transparency in your money, really I would say keeping it all completely open, not just sharing passwords, but completely on the same, you might be surprised at how much safety and freedom you feel in your relationship when you do that. The idea behind it is not to open the door to catching each other in like, you spent this much, or you did this, or where were you, or things like that. But the point behind it is to just be fully open and on the same page with your spouse, which is the best case scenario for anything, but especially money, right? Money is a huge part of life. And I really, really believe that it's a big thing in marriage. And honestly, it's a big downfall in marriage. So when a marriage is falling apart, oftentimes money and finances is one of the main issues, more than communication, lack of connection, things like that. Those are big as well, but finances is often a very huge issue when it comes to the downfall of a relationship. So, like I said, I know there's many different ways to handle it. My 2 cents is full transparency in money is by far the best route to go. Okay, my last one is have something to do together. So I will be transparent with you guys. My husband and I are in the phase of life that we have 4 young kids, and so we don't have the ability, we don't have family that lives around us, so that makes childcare and things like that trickier. But we don't really have the ability to go like to Tuesday night golf league or bowling league or once a week date night or something like that. That's just not in the cards right now, and that's reality. And that's fine, because if you are in a similar boat, there are lots of different ways to have something to do together. So the best way I can do this is to give you the example of my own life, which is we don't have like one hobby that we do together, but we try to do a lot of things together. So like last year, we built a whole bunch of huge garden boxes together, and now we kind of like man the garden together, right? Or projects outside, some fun projects, some random projects, but we try to have something that we do together. And then we absolutely throw in there's a random date night or something like that. But have something to do together. If you live too separate, then you lose a sense of connection and commonality. Think back to when you were dating and getting to know each other. The reason people get together is because they find things in common. They have at least some shared interest in addition to attraction and having fun together and whatnot, but there's at least some common shared interest, and you can't afford to lose that. But life is going to change, and some of those interests might change, and your flexibility to do those interests might change. So you gotta mold with it, you gotta change with it. And you and your spouse don't have to love every single thing. I don't do all the things that my husband's interested in, and he doesn't do all the things I am, but we do things together because you have to have something to keep you bonded together. And if that keeps changing over the phases and seasons of life, that's okay, but don't let it totally drop off. Don't let there be nothing that you do together. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this. Like I said before in all my other videos, hit all the buttons, share with a friend, leave any comments if you have any below, and I will get back to you. Have a great week.